A look back at the Celtics and everything that happened. They entered the year as the favorites to win the Eastern Conference, but failed to live up to those expectations, finishing as the 4 seed, losing in the second round to the Bucks. And Kyrie Irving averaged nearly 24 points per game, set career highs in assists, rebounds, and steals per game, but he struggled in the playoffs, shooting less than 39% from the field. Now the Celtics face a lot of questions. Kyrie and Al Horford have player options, Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris, free agents, but according to GM Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens is not one of those questions.
Difficult job. I knew it would be difficult from the beginning of the year, and we talked about that, but I think it was even more difficult than I anticipated and he anticipated. I think he's going to be a lot better because of the year that he went through. And he's the least of our worries. We know that he is going to work to become the best he can be and that he's going to learn from it. I wish every one of our players would put the time and effort and energy and thought into what Brad does, but like I said, there's no other coach I'd rather have than Brad Stevens.
That's interesting.
Hey?
What do you make of that?
I hear all that. I hear what Danny Ainge is saying, but it's weird for me. It just feels like Danny Ainge keeps throwing all these players under the bus, and it's like, well, our coach, we love him. We're going to stick with him. And it's fine if you want to stick with him. But to act like there is no blame on Brad Stevens, I think it's a little bit misleading. And I understand we can all agree that this hasn't been the best year for Kyrie Irving as a leader. I think there are some questions, but to sit up there and say that Brad Stevens didn't have anything wrong, I mean, how about them starting Gordon Hayward over Jason Tatum at the beginning of the year? I think that changed up the dynamic, the chemistry of the team. There's a lot of stuff that I think everybody deserves a blame here, and it's just not on the players. And sometimes it feels like it's Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, and everybody else is having issues, and they're the ones who aren't.
Well, you are correct, and that's like the third time I've said that this morning.
It's very weird.
It's very strange. But look, I think Danny Ainge has said it. He's like, it was more difficult than I expected. It was more difficult than he expected. He believes that he will be better coming out of this. That's him saying that, look, Brad needs to be better and will be better. This was a very, very difficult situation. You had two guys coming off injury, one that missed an entire season, one that missed an entire postseason where you had success with young players. Now you're bringing them all back and you're trying to tweak it and make it correct. That is one of the more difficult coaching situations you could ever be in.
Here's what I would say. I believe the person who actually is to blame for what happened with the Celtics this year is Danny Ainge himself. Now, I believe he held on to everybody as he did because he's going to try to trade for Anthony Davis. And if he is able to pull that off, then it was completely worth it. But a year ago at this time, Jay Will, you picked Boston to be this year's NBA champion. And you were not wrong. It made all the sense in the world. But anyone could look at that situation and say, this is going to go badly. No coach, Phil Jackson, whoever you want to put in that situation, no matter how zen they may be, was going to put those personalities together and say, yeah, they'll all be happy watching Kyrie Irving dribble the ball for 19 seconds and take a shot after they had all emerged as stars. They needed to move some of those guys out of there during this year to have a chance to win a championship. And if they don't get Anthony Davis, then I think it will have been a miss.
And you're right. And this is one of the things when you look at the Golden State Warriors and KD, they need to play a different way because Kevin Durant is the best player, one of the best players in the world. So if you allow him some ISO situations and chances to be KD, and that's what Boston needed. Boston was up 3-2 against a banged up Cleveland team, and Cleveland still advanced. They needed a stud guy that could go out there and do that. And so everybody had to give up something and sacrifice something. It just didn't sacrifice the way they wanted it.
On the court stuff is one thing, but here's where I do give Brad Stevens a pass. You can't control all the stuff that happened off the court.
Right.
And I think some of the comments that Kyrie made, it alienated some teammates. I think the whole situation was very difficult.
Shouldn't they have moved some guys out of there then during the course of the year? There was a championship to be won this year and they could have won it.
I agree.
If they don't get Anthony Davis, I think it will wind up having been a big mistake.
We're still talking about the Celtics hold on to assets even with this year's draft.
All right, we'll see what happens.